The crossroads gas and mart looked like it belonged to a forgotten map. The kind of place travelers only stopped when they were too tired to keep driving, too desperate for caffeine or fuel to notice the cracked asphalt and the humming fluorescent lights that gave everything a pale, unnatural glow. Inside, Wren Harlow worked her shift the way she did everything, methodically, efficiently, without drawing attention. She moved between shelves like she was running a drill, restocking candy bars in neat rows, aligning labels until they faced forward. Her steps were quiet, her expression neutral. 11 months in this dusty Montana town, and she'd mastered the art of being invisible. Outside, rain whispered against the wide front windows, making the empty parking lot shimmer under the lights. At 2:17 a.m., the world felt like it was holding its breath, suspended somewhere between yesterday and tomorrow. Wren liked it that way. The fewer people awake, the fewer people who might notice her. The bell above the door gave a soft chime. Evening run. Or, I guess it's morning now. Deputy Lachlan stepped in, shaking droplets from his hat. The smell of wet pine and cold air followed him inside. He moved toward the coffee machine without waiting for permission. Not that reminded. She offered him the same polite half-smile she gave everyone. "Coffee's fresh," she said, keeping her tone pleasant but measured. "You ever think about joining the town softball league?" Lachlan asked, pouring himself a steaming cup. "Could use someone with quick reflexes." Wren shook her head lightly. Not much of a joiner. He leaned casually on the counter, elbow brushing against a display of energy drinks. 3 cans wobbled, tipping toward the floor, but they never hit it. Wren's hand shot out, catching all 3 in a single fluid motion. For a second, her movements were too sharp, too precise, like muscle memory from another life. Lachlan's eyebrows rose. Wren quickly fumbled the last can, letting it clatter noisily to the floor. "Butterfingers," she muttered, bending to pick it up at a much slower pace. Lachlan sipped his coffee, still watching her. Heard some chatter on the scanner. Motorcycle gangs been making trouble in the next county over. Calls themselves the Ravagers. Mean bunch, dishonorable discharges, military backgrounds. Leader goes by Thresh. Wren's fingers tightened on the counter, just enough for the edge to bite into her skin. "They'll probably just pass through," she said evenly, though her eyes flicked briefly to the live security camera feed behind the counter. "Hope so," Lachlan said. "Just keep your doors locked." "I always do." The conversation dwindled into silence. Ron was good at that, giving people enough to seem polite, but never enough to be memorable. Hours later, after Lachlan had gone and the rain had faded to mist, dawn began to creep over the low hills. Wren locked up, slipped her hood up, and started the 3-mile walk to her trailer at the edge of town. Inside, the place looked less like a home and more like a staging area. A small table, 1 chair, a narrow bed. No photos, no mementos. Everything arranged with military precision. The only personal item was a worn copy of Auden's poetry, pages covered in tight, handwritten notes. Before allowing herself to sleep, she checked all 3 exit routes, back door, front door, and the loose panel behind the kitchenette that led under the trailer. Only when she was satisfied did she drop onto the bed for 4 restless hours. The dreams came again. Not dreams, exactly memories sharpened by time. The smell of smoke. The staccato of gunfire. Children's screams in a Kazakh village. She woke before the alarm. 3 uneventful days passed. No Ravagers. No trouble. Routine was a comfort. When her shift ended that 4th night, she left with a small paper bag, eggs, bread, instant coffee, and the orange prescription bottle Dr. Merrick had refilled without asking too many questions. 11 months without incident. Maybe this town could be different. Halfway across the lot, the night cracked open. A low, rolling growl of engines came from the darkness, growing louder, closer, until 5 motorcycles burst into the pool of light, splitting the quiet like an axe. They fanned out around her, the circle tightening. Leather jackets. Wolf insignias devouring a bleeding heart. Just like Lachlan had described. The Ravagers. Wren stood still. Her mind measured the space between them, the distance to the store, the angles of escape. Not many. Not good. The engines cut at the same time, leaving only the hum of the gas station lights. The man who stepped forward wore a jacket heavy with patches. His presence filled the air the way incoming fire does, with the certainty that something bad was about to happen. "Well, well," he said, voice carrying the clipped rhythm of someone who'd spent years taking orders. "Out late, aren't we?" Rin kept her voice neutral. "Just heading home. Please let me pass." The man, Thresh, she guessed, gave a slow grin that didn't touch his eyes. "Hear that, boys?" So polite. He circled her like a wolf sizing up prey. Then, with a flick of his hand, he knocked the grocery bag from her arms. The contents scattered, rolling into the darkness. An orange bottle of pills spun to a stop near another biker's boot. The man bent, reading the label aloud. Paroxetine. PTSD meds. Well, now military. Thresh's eyes sharpened. His hand shot out, grabbing Ren's wrist. He twisted it until the skin pulled tight, and the edge of a faded tattoo peeked out from under her watch. Recognition hit, like a flashbang. "Special Activities Division," he murmured. "Lieutenant Ren Harlow. Back from the dead." Her gaze shifted, just slightly, and whatever mask she'd been wearing slipped. He leaned in close enough for her to smell the cigarettes on his breath. "He's been looking for you." Somewhere behind him, a red light blinked, a helmet camera recording every second. Ren's weight shifted onto the balls of her feet. Her hands loosened at her sides. Her voice was calm, almost too calm. "I'm giving you one chance to walk away." The Ravagers laughed. Thresh tightened his grip. "Operation Blacklight. Ring any bells?" Her expression turned to stone. "Tell Archveld he can keep sending his dogs. The result will always be the same." He laughed, low and mean. "Think I'll tell him myself. After we've had some fun." The camera kept rolling. And Ron Harlow, who had spent nearly a year pretending to be nobody, stopped pretending. For a heartbeat, the parking lot felt like the inside of a drum. 5 bikes ticked as their engines cooled, the fluorescent lights hummed, and rain stitched the air into ragged seams. Thresh held Ren's wrist, the pressure deliberate, testing tendon, measuring resistance. The other riders spread into a loose crescent, giving him the stage and her nowhere to run that wouldn't pass through someone else's reach. Ren saw everything in the way she had been trained to see. The scuff boots, the jacket weights that printed the outline of a blade, the twitchy one who wouldn't stop rolling his shoulders, the calm one whose eyes never left her hands. She logged exit vectors out of habit, door left, blind corner by the propane cage, the black throat of the road, and discarded them all. She didn't need escape routes. She needed 12 seconds of clean, ruthless geometry. "Last chance," she said, not pleading, not daring, just a statement of fact. Thresh grinned. The rider to her right snickered. Someone behind her cracked his knuckles like a starter pistol. Ren exhaled. 12. Her wrist collapsed in toward Thresh's grip, not away. Give him what he expects to take. She shifted her weight and brought the edge of her free hand into the soft notch above his sternum. A precise cut to the trachea. Not a killing blow, a shutdown. His grin folded. He made a sound like a swallowed breath and let go, both hands flying to his throat. 11. She pivoted with the release, heels scraping across wet asphalt. The big man on her left surged forward in the same instant, counting on momentum. Ren borrowed it. She stepped outside his line and pulled his forearm past her hip, turning his center of gravity into empty space. He hit the side of his own bike knee first. Metal met bone with a sound that made the others flinch. He went down swearing, and the bike went with him, handlebars snapping sideways, exhaust pipe shrieking across the pavement. 10. The nervous one drew a knife. He flashed it chest high because he thought the blade itself was the threat. Rin didn't chase the knife. She chased the hand. Short range inside the arc, elbow up. Her strike landed just above his ear, a clean rattle to the temporal lobe. His eyes rolled like a slot machine, then shut. He collapsed in a heavy, undignified sit, blade skittering in a lazy pinwheel into the dark. 9. The fourth man tried to bear hug her from behind. Big, confident, more muscle than training. Rin let the grip close. Traps the size of a bull didn't matter if the joints were wrong. She dropped her weight and levered her hip, stole his stance the way she'd stolen the big man's momentum. His center came up and then down at a bad angle. She kicked his knee sideways with a sharp, unromantic crack. His scream tried to crawl out of his throat and found only gravel. 8. The fifth biker didn't scream. He went very still, which told Ren exactly how dangerous he was. His hand slid into his jacket, not fast but smooth, practiced. Gun or a compact baton. No time to guess. She closed the distance in a straight line, no feints, no flourish, and drove 2 shots. First to his wrist to ruin his draw, second to his solar plexus to fold his lungs. He folded, his fingers opened by reflex. Something metal clunked on wet pavement. She towed it away without looking. 7. Thresh was still on his knees, clawing at air that wouldn't come. The cartilage in his throat would reinflate in a minute if someone coached him through it. Ren had no intention of killing him. Dead men were loud in the wrong ways. Live ones carried messages. 6. The helmet camera blinked red like the heartbeat of a small animal. She clocked it peripherally. A rider had tipped it to keep her in frame. A witness. A trap. An insurance policy, depending on who was watching. It didn't change her math. She had already committed to the outcome. 5 down, her intact, and a message hand-delivered to the man who signed checks in blood. 5. The big man with the wrecked knee swung wild from the ground, more instinct than plan. Rin moved her shin to block his fist, angled down to spare her own bone, and let the impact die against muscle. She answered with a short hammer fist between his collarbones. The sound he made was a deflated accordion. He stayed down. 4. The nervous knife man tried to be brave, rolling onto one elbow. He reached for the blade he could not see anymore. Rin placed her boot lightly on his wrist. Not enough to break, enough to teach. His hand flattened theatrically. He had learned. 3. The quiet one tried to rise with his breath still gone. His hand fished for a secondary weapon at the small of his back. She didn't let him find it. A knee to ribs, 2, 3, counted out like a metronome. He went slack. 2. Thresh pupils were the size of coins. He stared at her with animal fury, equal parts anger and fear, the kind that turns mean boys into monsters. She crouched like a medic, not a fighter, and put 2 fingers along the edge of his windpipe. "Stop fighting it," she said softly. "Slow breath. In your nose. Out your mouth." He tried to spit and couldn't. His body obeyed the coaching in spite of his mind. 1. Silence. No more footsteps. No more new problems. The fluorescent lights hummed on indifferent. Rin stood and surveyed the scene without moving her head, only her eyes. 5 men on the pavement, groaning, gasping, cursing. 5 bikes, a glitter of chrome and rain. The smell of hot metal and spilled gas. The sound of her own breathing, steady as a training drill. 12 seconds had come and gone. She did not feel triumphant. She felt the way a surgeon might after exiting an operating theater, aware of blood, aware of pulse, aware of the ways things could have gone wrong and did not. She retrieved the paper bag first, practical as ever. The eggs had miraculously survived. The bread wore a boot print. The instant coffee had split a corner and dusted the asphalt like brown snow. The orange bottle lay on its side near a puddle, label glistening. She picked it up and turned it in her hand. Paroxetine. The lie that was also true. She slipped it back into the bag. Thresh wheezed. Air finally caught up. Rage flared behind his eyes like an acetylene torch reignited. He made the mistake of trying to stand. Rin tapped him with 2 fingers at the notch beneath his ear, not to knock him out, just to remind his nervous system who was in charge. He sagged back to a knee. She crouched again, close enough that the camera could read her lips if it needed to. "Listen carefully," she said, voice even as a metronome. "This is your only free lesson." He stared at her, jaw clenched, throat raw. "You tell James Archveld. This is the last warning. Next time he sends anyone, I won't be this gentle. And if he keeps coming, the files go everywhere. Not the sanitized versions. The originals." One of the bikers groaned. Another tried to crawl toward a phone that had fallen from his pocket. Rin stepped on it absently and slid it out of reach. A soft electronic chirp carried across the lot, the helmet camera announcing a low battery, or maybe an upload complete. Rin turned to it and walked straight into its gaze. She let it see her face, not the cashier's face or the ghost's face, but the soldier's, the one who had learned to live with the weight of her choices. "You're not hunting a ghost," she said to the lens. "You're tugging on a tripwire." Somewhere beyond the gas station lights, a siren wound up, thin and distant at first, then gaining confidence. Rin pictured an insomniac neighbor peeking through blinds, fingers already dialing the sheriff's office when the bikes arrived. Good. Let the record be official. She stood, squared the grocery bag in her grip, and looked down at Thresh one last time. He had found his voice, rough and scraped. "You think this is over," he rasped. "You're a dead woman walking." "I've been one," she said, almost kind. "It wasn't so bad." Quiet. He tried to lunge. His body refused the order. She turned away, not from contempt, but because the conversation was finished. Inside the store, the automatic doors whispered apart. The space was stale with coffee and bleach. She keyed the back office monitor and ran the tape back 20 seconds, confirming what she already knew. The external cameras had caught most of it, grainy and wide, more suggestion than detail. Good. No hero montage for the morning news. She ejected the tiny card, slipped it into her pocket, and left the drawer open. Let the deputy see the hole where evidence should be. Let him connect the dots he was smart enough to connect. Back outside, the sirens were closer. 2 vehicles now, maybe 3. Red and blue began to stain the low clouds on the horizon. The Ravagers found their feet in various miserable stages. None of them tried her again. Pain had finally out-argued pride. Rin paused at the edge of the light. The road beyond the station was a black ribbon, wet and empty. Inhale. Exhale. The tremor that should have come did not. The adrenaline that should have made her hands shake simply warmed her core. The training held. The mask, once dropped, was useless to pick back up. She would be seen now. The algorithm of her life had rerouted. She adjusted her jacket, set the bag against her hip, and walked toward the dark. The clerk was gone. The soldier moved in her place, step sure, eyes level. Rain hissed in the ditches. Tires whispered on distant asphalt. Somewhere, a dispatcher read her name off a screen and mispronounced it. Halfway to the edge of the lot, she heard Thresh cough and spit and laugh all at once. "He'll come for you," he called hoarsely. "He never stops." Rin didn't turn around. Neither do I. The sirens arrived in earnest, lights strobing, radios barking, boots slapping puddles. Rin slipped into the shadow outside the radius of the fluorescence and became slender and gray as fence wire. She could have melted entirely, faded down the ditch and into the scrub, and no one would have seen. But she didn't need to vanish. Not tonight. Vanishing was an old habit, and old habits had kept her alive and alone. She crossed the road like a rumor. Behind her, officers shouted orders, names, questions. Someone tried to explain through a ruined voice. Another moaned. A rookie swore under his breath. The helmet camera lay abandoned, still blinking, still gathering, still feeding some hungry server far away. Rin didn't look back. She had left what she meant to leave. 5 warnings shaped like men, and a message spoken straight into the eye of the watcher. The circle had closed. A new one had just been drawn. On the far shoulder, she stopped under the low drip of a spruce bough and took one breath to steady the compass inside her. North would be snow soon. West would be mountains. East would be empty. South would be memory. She chose none of them yet. She chose motion. A second siren joined the first, different pitch, same urgency. The night leaned closer to listen. Rin stepped off the gravel and into the dark, and the road swallowed her like ink. By the time the last flicker of police lights vanished behind her eyes, Rin was 5 miles from the gas station and 2 hours deeper into the Montana night. The rain had thinned to a mist that clung to her jacket and hair, beating along the zipper like tiny, deliberate warnings. She kept her pace steady, not fast enough to draw attention from a passing driver, but not slow enough to invite company. Her mind replayed the parking lot in clean surgical frames, every blow, every angle, every choice. She didn't dwell on the violence. She dissected it like a mechanic inspecting worn parts. The outcome had been correct. The cost was yet to be calculated. That calculation was already being done elsewhere. Pentagon, Washington, D.C. 7 time zones away, the viral footage played on a bank of monitors in a high-security conference room. 5 men in leather sprawled across wet asphalt. A woman, face clear in one camera, blurred in another, moving with precision and force that spoke of training, not luck. General Halverson rewound the clip. 12 seconds, he muttered. 5 trained operatives neutralized. A junior officer, face pale in the screen glow, said, "Facial recognition confirms it. Lieutenant Rinharlo, Special Activities Division. Declared Kia, Kazakhstan, 2019. The door opened. Conversation stopped. Commander James Archveld stepped in, silver hair cropped to regulation length, eyes like cold January water. He surveyed the room in silence. "Everyone out," he said. "Except you, Pallas." When the others were gone, Operative Cassandra Pallas brought up a classified database. She downloaded the blacklight files before she disappeared. Everything, original mission parameters, altered intelligence, casualty reports. Archveld's jaw worked once. She knows the village wasn't a target. She knows someone falsified the intel, and that her team died in an ambush 3 days later. Pallas' tone was careful. "All except her. Until now we thought she was dead." Archveld turned toward the footage, his reflection warped in the glass. "Activate Ghost Protocol. Find her before she releases those files." "Sir," Pallas said, "this video has 17 million views already. Everyone's looking for her." "Then we find her first," Archveld said flatly. "By any means necessary. Montana, outskirts of town." Rin reached her trailer just before dawn. Her hands moved without hesitation, military efficiency in every gesture. A single duffel for essentials. Weapons, cash, burner phones, encrypted drives. Clothing chosen for utility, not comfort. On the bed lay a sealed envelope addressed to half a dozen major news outlets. Inside, the blacklight files. Insurance, to be deployed if she vanished for good. Her burner phone buzzed. Unknown number. She let it ring twice before answering. "They're coming for you," a voice said without preamble. Male. Familiar. "Reeves," she asked, her voice tight. "Ghost protocol's been activated. You've got hours, not days." Archveld's running point himself. Rin zipped the duffel. "Then it's time. You send those files, there's no coming back." There's been no coming back since Kazakhstan. Before hanging up, she checked her 3 exit routes one last time. She paused only to place her worn copy of Auden's selected poems at her elderly neighbor, Mrs. Abernathy's door, a note tucked inside. "Some fights are worth having. Thank you for your kindness." The ignition of her truck never came. Instead, a bloom of fire turned her trailer into a brief, furious sunrise. The shockwave rattled windows 3 lots away. Rin didn't stop walking. The flames were her erasure, proof to anyone watching that Rinharlo no longer existed here. 3 states away, 36 hours later. A nondescript motel room. 1 bed. Thin curtains. The television showed her own face side by side with a grainy helmet cam footage. The churn read, "Parking lot ghost. Who is she?" The news anchor's voice cut through the low volume. The Department of Defense has yet to comment on allegations that a covert military operation in 2019 resulted in over 40 civilian deaths. Newly leaked documents suggest high-level officials knowingly falsified intelligence and later orchestrated the deaths of American soldiers to cover it up. Ren's phone rang, a secure line only a handful of people knew. "They've issued a capture or kill order," the voice said. "Archveld convinced the Joint Chiefs you're a national security threat." Did they read the files? They didn't need to. The moment you went public, you became the enemy. Rin crossed the window. The lot appeared empty except for a black SUV across the street, a man pretending to read a newspaper. Her phone buzzed again. A text, friendly. "Alley behind motel. 5 minutes. Trap? Almost certainly. But allies were rarer than safety. She left through the bathroom window, dropped soundlessly into the narrow alley. A woman leaned against the wall. Military posture, scanning without moving her head. Operative Palace, I presume, Rin said from the shadows. Palace stepped forward. We don't have much time. Tactical teams 2 minutes out. Why help me? Because I read the blacklight files. All of them. Including the parts you don't have. Who ordered the hit on your team? Rin studied her. Archveld. Higher. Much higher. Archveld was following orders, same as you. Sirens wailed closer. There's a car at the end of the alley. Keys in the ignition. Head north, Palace said. They'll know you helped me. Probably. Palace smiled grimly. Some fights are worth having. Rin hesitated only a second before moving. The car was an old Ford, dark blue, engine still warm. As she slid into the driver's seat, Palace called after her. The world needs to know the whole truth, Lieutenant, not just about blacklight, but about who was behind it. Rin didn't answer. The engine growled, tires bit wet pavement, and she was gone. The road north bled into dawn, gray and thin. Rin kept the Ford steady at 60, neither slow enough to be memorable nor fast enough to draw patrol eyes. Somewhere behind her, the tactical net would be swarming, search grids, plate readers, drones if Archveld was feeling thorough. She drove like she had a head start she didn't trust. By the time the sun cracked the tree line, she'd ditched the car in a church parking lot 2 towns over and walked the rest of the way into a quiet suburb. She needed neutral ground, a staging point to decide the next move. But the decision was already waiting for her. Georgetown, Washington, D.C., a day later. The front room of the old brick house smelled faintly of cigar smoke and furniture polish. 3 senators sat around a low table. Delgado, Finch, Winters. No aides, no cameras. Just coffee cooling in porcelain cups. Rin stepped inside with Sergeant Zach Reeves at her shoulder, thinner than she remembered, scarred, but alive. The man she thought buried in Kazakhstan. Lieutenant Harlow, Senator Delgado, greeted her. We understand the risk you've taken coming here. The risk is in not taking action, Rin replied, scanning the room for angles, threats, exits. Old habits. Tomorrow's hearing is compromised. Kenmore's death wasn't a suicide. We agree, Winters said. Medical examiner's a friend. Ligature marks don't match self-infliction. Someone wanted him silenced before he could testify. Finch leaned forward. If you testify in closed session, your words will vanish into classified records. We're proposing something different. A joint press conference. Live-streamed. Evidence presented to the public and multiple law enforcement agencies at the same time. Ren's gaze moved between them. When? Tonight. Before anyone else disappears. She looked to Reeves. He gave a slight nod, his version of approval. I'll need guarantees of protection for myself and Sergeant Reeves, she said. Delgado slid a folder across the table. Inside, a signed guarantee from the Attorney General. Full immunity in exchange for full disclosure. Rin closed the folder. 1 hour. I need to prepare my statement. Midnight, press conference. The hotel ballroom smelled faintly of panic and camera equipment. Lights flared, reflecting in the lenses of a dozen networks. Outside, the rain blurred the city into watercolor. Rin stepped to the podium, flanked by the senators and Reeves. Microphones bristled like bayonets. My name is Lieutenant Ren Harlow, United States Army Special Activities Division. In 2019, I was part of an elite unit sent to neutralize a terrorist cell in Kazakhstan. What we were not told was that the intelligence was falsified. The target was not a terrorist stronghold. It was a civilian village. The room shifted, reporters leaning forward, pens halting mid-scratch. When my team discovered the truth and tried to report it through proper channels, we were ambushed. I believed I was the only survivor. That ambush was not an accident. It was an order from our own command. She held up a flash drive, small and unremarkable in her fingers. This contains everything. Original mission briefings. The falsified intelligence reports. Internal communications ordering the elimination of my team. and the names of those responsible. A reporter's voice cut through the static of flashbulbs. Are you naming names tonight? Yes, Wren said. Director Marcus Kenmore, who died under suspicious circumstances yesterday. Commander James Archveld, currently in custody. And beyond them, Secretary of Defense Raymond Harris, who personally authorized both the falsified intelligence and the subsequent cover-up. Gasps, a rustle of paper, the staccato of rapid-fire camera shutters. 6 months later, Washington, D.C. The congressional hearing room was packed. Observers lined the walls. Press huddled in the corners. Wren sat straight-backed at the witness table, her service medals pinned for the first time in years. She wasn't hiding now. Chairman Wexler adjusted his microphone. Lieutenant Harlow, the evidence you provided has led to the most significant military accountability hearings in decades. For the record, when did you decide to release classified information regarding Operation Blacklight? Wren's voice was steady. When I realized my team had been deliberately sent to eliminate civilians and that the ambush was designed to silence us. I secured evidence, but didn't release it immediately because I believed in the system. I followed protocol. For my efforts, I watched my team die one by one and barely escape myself. The doors at the back opened. Commander Archveld entered in handcuffs. His gaze met Wren's. No hatred, only a grim recognition. The evidence indicates Commander Archveld falsified intelligence and later ordered the elimination of your team, Wexler said. Do you have anything to say to him? Wren looked at the man who had hunted her. No, sir. Justice speaks for itself. Archveld was led away. The record took his place. By evening, the headlines were everywhere. Blacklight conspiracy exposed. Secretary of Defense arrested. Whistleblower turns the tide. Wren watched the news in a quiet room. For once, her face on the screen wasn't a threat. It was a shield, a warning to anyone thinking of silencing her again. She thought of Reeves, of Pallas, of the villagers whose names she'd never learned, of her team. Every word spoken, every document released, was for them. But she also knew, exposing the truth was not the end. It was the first step in a fight that had only just begun. The headlines didn't fade as quickly as Wren expected. 6 months after the press conference, the Blacklight revelations was still on every major network. Military reform bills were winding their way through Congress. Oversight committees had been created, and several high-ranking officers now faced federal charges. The world knew her name. She'd spent years avoiding exactly that. Washington, D.C., Congressional Hearing Room. The cameras were there again, rows of them, lenses like unblinking eyes. Wren sat at the witness table in her service dress, ribbons and medals in perfect order. She hadn't worn them since before Kazakhstan, before her team's last mission. Chairman Wexler spoke first. Lieutenant Harlow, for the record, would you state why you came forward? Wren's voice carried through the packed chamber. Because the people who died, both the villagers and my team, deserve the truth. I didn't survive to keep their ghosts quiet. I survived to make them heard. Reporters scribbled. Cameras rolled. On the far side of the room, Commander Archveld sat in chains, waiting to testify. His eyes found hers. There was no anger left there, only a tired acknowledgement of how far the fall had been. Wexler cleared his throat. Do you have anything to say to Commander Archveld? No, sir, Wren replied. Justice speaks for itself. Archveld was led away. Evening, secure facility. The Washington Monument was a pale spear against the black sky. Wren stood at the window, the city lights fractured by raindrops on the glass. Behind her, the phone rang. Only one number had access to this line. Lieutenant, Senator Jacobson said, turn on the news. She did. Breaking news. Director Marcus Kenmore found dead in federal holding cell. Apparent suicide, Jacobson said grimly. I don't believe it for a second. Wren's jaw tightened. They're cleaning house. Exactly. We're moving your public testimony up to tomorrow morning. Full transparency. We get it all on record before anyone else disappears. I'll be ready, she said, and hung up. An unexpected visitor. The intercom buzzed. Lieutenant, there's someone here to see you. Says he's an old friend. Rin tensed. Name: Sergeant Zach Reeves. Her pulse stumbled. Reeves was supposed to be dead. He stepped into the room a moment later, thinner, a scar tracking his jaw, but unmistakably alive. "They told me you were dead," she said quietly. "They told everyone," Reeves replied. "Same way they told everyone you were." "How'd you survive?" "Refused to die when I was supposed to. Played dead, waited them out. Then I spent 3 years getting close enough to Kenmore to find proof. You were my exit plan. You were my source," Rin realized. "The anonymous leaks." Reeves nodded. "And now Kenmore's dead. Convenient, isn't it?" He pulled a small device from his pocket. Bug sweeper. In minutes, he found 2 listening devices in the room. He didn't remove them, just activated a jammer. 5 minutes before they notice," he said. "They'll try to shut me down tomorrow," Rin guessed. "Best case, they discredit you. Worst case, you join Kenmore," Reeves said. "There's another way. 3 senators outside the committee are ready to force an independent investigation. Public. No closed doors. No chance to bury your testimony." Rin didn't hesitate. "Arrange the meeting." Private residence, Georgetown, that night. Senators Delgado, Finch, and Winters were waiting. No staff, no aides, no recorders. Lieutenant Harlow, Delgado said, "We want the truth in the open. Tonight." Before the hearing, they proposed a live joint press conference, evidence streamed to multiple agencies and the press at once. No chance to edit, redact, or vanish it. Wren's conditions were simple: protection for herself and Reeves. It was granted. 1 hour, she said. Then we go live. The final press conference. Under the glare of live TV lights, Rin laid it all out. "My team was sent into Kazakhstan on falsified intelligence. We killed civilians. When we tried to report it, we were targeted by our own. That's the truth." She held up the flash drive. "This contains the full chain of command. Director Marcus Kenmore, Commander James Archveld, and Secretary of Defense Raymond Harris, who authorized it all." The senators confirmed. Harris had already been arrested. The evidence was irrefutable. The truth was out. Permanently. 6 weeks later, a different room. A folding circle of chairs in a community center. The sign on the door, Veteran Support Group, all welcome. Rin was there early, setting the chairs evenly, a pot of coffee on the table. The television in the corner ran muted headlines. Blacklight hearings lead to sweeping reform. The door opened. A young veteran stepped in, eyes darting, shoulders hunched, scanning exits without meaning to. Rin knew that look. "First time?" she asked gently. He nodded. "It gets easier," she said, offering him a chair. "Not the memories. But carrying them gets easier when you're not alone." More people arrived, different ages, different wars, all with the same haunted edge. Reeves slipped in last, taking the chair beside her. "Good turnout," he murmured. "They need this," Rin replied. "So do we." When it was her turn to speak, she didn't hesitate. "My name is Rin. I served in special activities. For years after, I thought disappearing was survival. But ghosts don't heal. People do." A young voice asked, "How do you stop seeing their faces?" "The ones who didn't make it back." Rin met his gaze. "You don't. You live for them. You speak for them. You become visible when they can't." Outside, rain began to fall, soft, steady, washing the world clean. Rin glanced at her reflection in the window. Not a ghost. Not invisible. Present. Alive. "The hardest part isn't surviving," she told the group. "It's deciding what to do with that survival." She looked around the circle. "This is mine. Bearing witness. Making sure no one carries these burdens alone." The rain kept falling. Somewhere beyond it, the world moved on. And for the first time in years, so did she.